welcome to episode 7 of Ping, a Firewalls.com podcast, a bi-weekly look at cybersecurity, including top products, the latest trends, news, expert tips, and interviews with top security industry company representatives. I'm Kevin Baxter, and I'm joined by my Firewalls.com colleague, Andrew Harmon.
Hello.
Hey, Andrew. As we dive into a different featured topic each episode. New episodes of the podcast come out every other Wednesday, so subscribe or follow on your favorite podcasting platform to get the latest one. And feel free to leave a comment or email us at podcast@firewalls.com with feedback or questions. Now on to our featured topic for this episode.
As we're just over a week away from the Thanksgiving holiday coming into this episode, we're taking the interview segment a little differently. When you think of Thanksgiving, you may be thinking about parades, football, shopping, or days off of work, but the enduring images of the holiday relate to the tradition of gathering around the dinner table with family and friends, enjoying multiple helpings of turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, dinner rolls, vegetables, sweet potatoes, pumpkin pie. The list goes on.
And your family may have the tradition during Thanksgiving dinner of having each person at the table pick something that they're thankful for and share that with the group. So I am not sure if that's just a tradition in TV and movies or based in reality. It's not something that I've ever done personally. But
No, I don't think so.
But now we will say that we have been able to do that because whether it's real or fake, we're hopping on board here at Ping, as Andrew and I will share a few things we're grateful for this Thanksgiving relating to our bread and butter. Like that one? Because bread and butter at the Thanksgiving table. I could have
You're
said,
on a roll.
Thank you. Oh, wow. Took that to another level. I like it. Cybersecurity is our bread and butter. So, Andrew, Grandma Doris is waiting for your first entry.
I never keep Grandma Doris waiting. This year, I'm thankful for all of the guests that joined us for interviews on this podcast, making the whole show possible. This will be our 7th episode, and we've now had 1,000 listens spread across all of our channels and platforms. So I speak on behalf of my co-host, Kevin, and everyone at Firewalls.com, and extending a very special thank you to Sonic Wall's Shannon Emmons and Dan Krimmers, Chris McCormick from Sophos, Fortinet's Jaime Ortiz and Douglas Santos, Mark LaLiberty at WatchGuard and the 443 podcast, and our very own at Firewalls.com, Anthony Merchaud. Your knowledge and stories are the reason this podcast exists, and we hope you all have a great holiday season this year.
Yeah, definitely echo that. We are very appreciative of the time that each of our guests has taken and the expertise that they've shared. I think we've both learned something each episode from our guests and really enjoyed having these conversations. You know, a wide variety of subjects and products that we've talked about and services that we've talked about. And it's been a nice learning experience and we've enjoyed it so far. First episode was back in August. And so the 3 months have already really flown by in this. It feels like we've been doing this a lot longer.
Yeah, and a special shout out to everyone else, our partners that have helped us set this up and helped us with scheduling everything and putting together calls. So thank you to everyone.
So it's just a mini retrospective on this thankful, but certainly an appropriate one. It's not the end, just the beginning, really. My turn at the table now. I am thankful for threat intelligence and for the people and machines gathering it, and for the use of that intelligence to improve security. We've talked to a couple of people who deal with the threat intelligence world, actually. The top cybersecurity providers create products and solutions designed to stop threats. And as we've talked about a few times, threats are continually evolving. Attackers are always looking for new ways to circumvent established security offerings. So to keep up, each manufacturer has global teams dedicated to threat monitoring and using what they've learned to keep their customers as safe as possible. So shout out to the spooky cyber threats episode that we did a couple of episodes back, and also our episode with Mark LaLiberty, who with WatchGuard does similar work. But to name a few, there are Sonic Wall Capture Labs, FortiGuard Labs, and Sophos Labs. Each entity has internal and external experts monitoring the threat landscape constantly, incorporating artificial intelligence and machine learning to spot and stop malware. So when you hear about things like sandboxing and other security services that enhance the protection of the actual firewall devices that these companies have, These threat analysts are really the reason that stuff exists and is trying to stay ahead of the curve. They don't just keep the information they gather to themselves either. It's not just proprietary stuff. They have information on their websites where you can keep track of the latest threats and get some info from blogs, podcasts, etc. Of what you can do to stop them. They're working 24/7. We know that the attackers are working 24/7 as well, but they do a pretty great job of staying ahead of the curve.
Yeah, threat analysts are a special breed of people that are a huge font of knowledge to draw from, and they love sharing that knowledge and publishing it and using it to help keep everybody safer.
And just keeping yourself abreast of what they're doing will help your own intelligence when it comes to the cybersecurity landscape. On to
back to my side
back
of the
across
table.
the table. Yeah. Past the stuffing and past another thankful.
So this year, I am also thankful for the increasing performance, security, and ease of use for remote access capabilities. 2019 was the year of SD-WAN, as we said many times, with just about every manufacturer in the industry pushing the envelope when it comes to the WAN edge as a focus. By making remote access solutions cheaper and more secure, security vendors are enabling further digital transformation of organizations, ultimately leading to better outcomes for businesses of all shapes and sizes. Remote access makes businesses more flexible. It means more employees can work from home or on the road or from shared public workspaces. It means that productivity can travel. And as we head into the dark winter months with treacherous roads and polar vortexes and blizzards and cold snaps, being able to just turn on your coffee pot, put on your pajamas, and have just as productive of a work day in your own kitchen as you would from the office results in a better work-life balance for everybody.
Do you have a dedicated pajama situation, or don't want to get too personal here?
I've got 3 or 4 pairs I shift through depending on how I feel that morning.
Do you have holiday pajamas as we get closer to Christmas time?
I'll have to pick some up. I'll keep an eye out at the store.
All right. Weird road that I turned down, but well, connectivity of SD-WAN in particular. We just had some information out a few weeks ago. Earlier this month, actually, our friends at Fortinet just released their latest secure SD-WAN firewall appliance, the 60F, the FortiGate 60F, to go with the 100F that they released earlier this year. They're just one of many vendors who really are placing SD-WAN as a priority, and it's opening up some new avenues to a lot of companies.
Right. And this is making life easier for employees, employers, consumers, everybody, really. Just knowing that you can remote access more securely and more cheaply, it sort of pushes companies to keep growing smarter and more advanced in their technology, which makes everybody more secure at the end.
Very much so. And taping this in the middle of November, we have already had our first one of those lovely snowstorms here in Indianapolis. So
of course, yes.
It's top of mind right now. We'll head back over my direction now for thank you number 4. So while we talk negatively about the human element in cybersecurity, making networks most vulnerable, there is some positive news, and I'm thankful for increasing awareness about safe online behavior. We may still be on the early side of this trend, but I think we've seen some positive signs through this year. If you listen through previous episodes of Ping, you'll hear multiple news articles urging companies to invest more in cybersecurity, with one area of investment in particular being strongly encouraged. That's employee cybersecurity training. We are well aware that there are knowledge and attention gaps among users that can let in attackers through social engineering, but the mere fact that there is a growing groundswell that the need for training exists in itself is positive. It not only encourages decision makers to institute strong training, but it also may pique the interest of employees who read these stories on their own and could lead them to seek to fill gaps in their own understanding. We just wrapped up in October Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which is a whole month spearheaded by government and non-government organizations with the purpose of getting more and more people to #be cybersmart. There is other evidence of improvement too. Reports of cyber credit card fraud and identity theft have declined, with the rates reaching a 4-year low. And while better security measures in general are a part of that, it also suggests that people are maybe doing a little bit better job protecting their own data. while they're shopping online. So there's still gaps, but at least it feels like there is a strengthening movement to close them.
It turns out humans aren't all that bad, actually. Yeah, this is definitely something that's increased in the cultural zeitgeist, if you will, this talk of cybersecurity and general awareness. I think 10, 15 years ago, news of a data breach would kind of just gloss over for most people. But, nowadays you might hear something about that over the water cooler, just with your average employee discussing the latest cybersecurity headlines in passing. So it's definitely becoming something people are discussing more and more aware of. And because of that, being generally safer with.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. We don't want to have more data breaches, but the one thing that's positive, I guess, about the high-profile ones is that they do connect with people. I mean, earlier this year, you had the Capital One. How many millions of people have some sort of connection to Capital One? Equifax a couple of years ago. Anytime you hear one of the big names, it's water cooler conversation,
Right.
and if
And all it took was hundreds of millions of victims.
But yes, if somebody reads one of those stories, usually to the credit of many of the writers that we read out there, they also do include information from cybersecurity experts that say, maybe you should do this, 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 and this, and it might help keep you safer. And that's got to be getting through to some people.
Yeah, if you keep repeating the points, eventually they land home for a lot of people.
And I'm sure we'll repeat them a few more times ourselves, too. All right. Last thank you from Andrew.
Oh, I think I can come up with one more. I'm thankful that malware activity decreased by almost 20% worldwide in 2019. That's according to SonicWall's mid-year threat report. Specifically, malware targeting non-standard ports dipped to 13%, which is a stat that's been consistently falling year over year. Many networks utilize these non-standard ports as part of a defense in depth strategy. They employ several layers of security for maximum coverage. And with less and less malware targeting these non-standard points, at least one of those fronts in a multi-layered security setup will see fewer attack attempts against it. So this news is not all sunshines and rainbows, though, because ransomware is certainly on the rise and filling that vacuum. But anytime we can talk about a prevalent threat shrinking in size, I think that's reason to celebrate. According to Google Transparency Report, the number of websites hosting malware is at its lowest point in 12 years. A very sharp decrease, actually, in that stat. A lot less infected websites. I think the switch from HTTP to HTTPS being adopted a lot more commonly is definitely helping with that.
Yeah, and that's pretty much ubiquitous now. The HTTPS, it's almost unusual to see sites that don't have that.
Yes, Chrome now actually decreases site rankings for sites that are not secure. So if you're looking to increase your SEO, maybe just securing your website a little more would help with that.
Simple step that definitely means a lot. And, people, going back to our awareness discussion, people, I think, are generally understanding that they need to be looking for that S there,
right.
too.
And it helps that you see the little green padlock. And I think Chrome and other browsers have done a good job of adding some transparency.
Yeah. And going back to your larger point, we do talk about the big breaches, but it's good to hear that maybe there are fewer smaller breaches that are happening. So that is definitely something to be thankful for. I'll finish off with the pumpkin pie. Are you a pumpkin pie fan?
I am a pumpkin pie fan, yes, with lots of whipped cream.
Oh, can't go wrong with that. Though I have met some people who are not pumpkin pie fans.
Oof.
So,
I hope you did not stay friends with them long.
All right. I'm also thankful for the growing ease and availability of Wi-Fi. So businesses from SMBs to enterprise have recognized the many upsides of having a wireless local area network, which largely comes down to better access to information wherever employees are, whether they're at their desks, in a meeting, on a break, or in some other spot on the business campus. That access makes collaboration easier. So meetings, for instance, don't require trips back and forth to get physical files. You don't see somebody coming in with a shoebox full of stuff and plumping it on the table anymore. You don't have to find a place to plug in. That's always a problem in certain
Yeah, there's only so many cords.
Yeah. That also means your staff can be more responsive, as they won't have to leave emails sitting on their desktop when they're spending time elsewhere. A lot of meetings have some downtime. Good time to keep tabs on your emails, or if there's somebody that you're waiting to get in touch with, you don't have to just sit by your desk to wait to hear from them. You can keep your info with you, keep your smartphone, laptop, tablet, whatever, and keep tabs on that and not have your day grind to a halt. Also makes it easier to add users or move them around between offices while keeping them connected. And of course, with a wireless network, you also have the ability to offer guest access, which is especially helpful not only to visiting employees and partners, but if you have a retail, medical, or hospitality business, you can provide access to the public, which is something I think people generally come to expect now. If they go to a store or restaurant, certainly staying at a hotel, if you don't have wireless,
It can be a bit confusing for guests even.
yeah. And then finally, there's the next wave of wireless, which is Wi-Fi 6 or 802.11ax. If you see a Wi-Fi 6 certified device, you'll know you're getting more secure wireless with increased capacity, higher data rates, better efficiency, and better performance, even with heavy usage. And Wi-Fi 6 is expected to be able to handle 4 times the capacity of 802.11ac Wave 2 wireless. It's just starting to pop up here and there, but look for it more and more. So another jump forward in the technology spectrum.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I do all of my email checking in the drive-thru at McDonald's. So having that guest Wi-Fi there is imperative for me.
Absolutely. We talked about the work from home aspect, but sometimes people who do work from home need a change of scenery. And so they do like to go to a Starbucks, a McDonald's.
Or even a public park. There's a lot of city-wide Wi-Fi is a growing thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So having that access available is just nice for quality of life for people. And, they remember it too, because we just said people go to Starbucks, people go to McDonald's, people stay at hotels where they know they have reliable Wi-Fi if they're business travelers and things of that nature too. So it's important. And we have a lot of continually improving mobile networks and everything, but there are always places where the signal doesn't get through, buildings, floors, etc. And so having Wi-Fi available as well is important.
Right. So like you said, it's great for productivity and meetings. If I've forgotten a document that needs to go up on the main screen and show everybody, I can hop on my phone, toss it over to a colleague who's connected to the laptop, and we can pull it up right then and there. So Wi-Fi is definitely a helpful thing to have.
So that's just a small sampling of things that we are thankful for this year as we get near the Thanksgiving holiday, but also wanted to shout out you. We're especially thankful to all of you who take the time to listen to Ping, and you can get more of us in written form by visiting our blog at firewalls.com/blog.
Kevin, I'm curious what our guests are thankful for this year. Let's have them tell us in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you can shoot us an email at podcast@firewalls.com with things that you are thankful for. We're switching up our typical order a bit in this episode to stay on our theme. And so we are jumping ahead to our Engineers Minute.
At Firewalls.com, we're fortunate, even thankful, to have a team of certified network security engineers who offer a variety of services to top brands like firewall configurations, endpoint deployment, and expert support, to name a few.
In our Engineers Minute, one of our experts takes a moment each episode to provide a tip or answer a question, and that's where you come in. Leave a question in the comments or email us at podcast@firewalls.com. There's that email address again, and you may just get your question answered in a future episode. So now we ask our network engineer, Anthony, what are you thankful for?
I'm feeling thankful for my password manager. There are 3 keys to a secure password: uniqueness, complexity, and length. Each of these attributes makes remembering the password that much more difficult. Many people use the same password for multiple different logins. That means if one of those companies mishandles it, every place you use it is compromised, because a hacker will try your Twitter password at banking sites and everywhere else. Complexity helps prevent dictionary and rainbow table attacks, but is actually less important than length. Length is probably the most important feature of a password because at current processing speeds, a 9th character takes your password from taking 9 hours to be cracked to 4 weeks, and a 10th from 4 weeks to 6 years. Though I actually recommend making your password as long as the application will allow. So to remember all these unique, complex, and long passwords, you'll want a password manager. You'll then want to make sure you secure that password manager with a password that is unique, complex, and long. I recommend picking a meaningful phrase, preferably one that has a number in it. For instance, $13 for a hot dog can provide uniqueness, assuming you're not using it anywhere else, complexity by using numbers, varying capitalization, and perhaps some special characters like an exclamation mark at the end. It's also fairly long, but for this password it's important to be easily rememberable, which is why you picked a phrase that means something to you. You'll probably also want to secure that password manager with two-factor authentication. And don't forget to be thankful you don't have to remember your other 37 passwords.
To learn more about what our network engineers can do for your business, give us a call at 866-403-5305 or go to Firewalls.com/services.
And now it's time for headlines. Didn't forget about our regular headline segment in which we discuss a few top news stories in the network security world and what they may mean to you. So we'll jump right into headline number 1. So this is kind of an amalgamation of a few stories, but it relates to a very well-known tradition of Thanksgiving weekend that we briefly mentioned earlier, and that is shopping. The National Retail Federation says over 41 million people shopped online from Thanksgiving Day through Cyber Monday last year. That's about 7 million more than the number who shopped only in stores. So even though you see the stampedes in stores still and the campers out there, more people are eschewing that to stay home and maybe keep those pajamas on and do their shopping from home as well. The online sales last year jumped almost 25% over the previous year. They generated $6.2 billion with predictions that they'll generate even more this year, $7.5 billion. And cyber attackers know these numbers too. So when they hear 41 million online shoppers, they see 41 million targets ripe for data theft. And our friends at Sonic Wall Capture Labs, who we mentioned earlier, noted that in 2018, ransomware was the attack of choice with triple and even quadruple digit percentage increases in the number of ransomware attacks from 2017 to 2018, even though the overall number of cyber attacks was down. So ransomware, something to watch out for this cyber shopping season. What else did you see, Andrew?
Yeah, as online shopping becomes easier and more popular, different companies start using this opportunity to have Cyber Monday deals. You're definitely going to see cyber criminals getting more involved in the holidays themselves. Most cyber crime is financially motivated. Cyber criminals tend to have a lot of technical tools at their disposal, like malware cocktails and ransomware as a service, but they're always on the lookout for some sort of real-world event or scenario to act as a hook for the social engineering aspect of their scams. Holiday season makes a ripe time for that. With so much retail activity happening, you've got emails going back and forth about order confirmations, order status, receipts, tracking, all sorts of things. And that's a lot of opportunity to drop in links, to typo squat certain URLs, to send attachments that may contain malicious payloads.
People are in the rush to get deals too. So that's really the time when you may be most vulnerable, because you know that doorbuster may be available for only a short period of time. Amazon always has countdowns on their lightning deals, but if it's a TV for a special deal from somewhere, there's only so many in stock. So all sorts of reasons like that mean that maybe you're not paying as close attention to whether there's something a little wonky about the website that you're visiting, whether there's something a little off in the email that gives you the lightning deal that's maybe not actually sending you to the right place. And the order confirmation, as you said, if you're placing orders and it looks kind of legit from a distance, you may not be thinking about, well, maybe I didn't actually order that particular item or order from that particular store. So you may accidentally click on something, download an attachment, and start causing yourself a world of problem.
Yeah, and hackers are relying on this sort of fear of missing out and the urgency of online shopping, especially in the holiday season. You don't want to miss that last deal. So, just take a deep breath and, if it's too good to be true, maybe it is too good to be true. I would also like to mention that not only online shopping is a big threat during Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but physical retail stores are also at risk from attackers. A report by Business in the Community claims that 43% of retail businesses have minimal cybersecurity measures in place, making this market one of the most at risk when it comes to an attack. Retail stores tend to be, if they're a chain, highly distributed networks, lots of locations all connecting to a central hub or database. And if it's a non-retail chain, it tends to be a mom and pop store that doesn't have a lot of IT expertise or security budgets. So in many cases, these are ripe targets as well for attackers. And a lot of these companies, past basic PCI compliance, aren't all that concerned with the more advanced security options out there.
And we just talked, I think it was last episode or the episode before, of Bluetooth being another method of data theft. And one of those examples that we talked about was actually at a restaurant. So using a Bluetooth reader right under a credit card reader, which those are all over the place in retail. And again, same issue as a retailer. You know that you're going to be inundated with people, whether it's physically or online.
Can't keep an eye on all of them.
You can't keep an eye on all of them, and you may be a little too lax in that situation. So you got to watch out physically for those types of situations to occur. And Kaspersky also put out a warning to actual online retailers that they too can be targets. So they may be too distracted to notice an attack in progress because there's so much traffic that they just think there's lots of traffic. But
right.
Hackers can use that as an opportunity to divert some of that legitimate traffic to clone sites, to harvest credit card information. We talked about form jacking a couple of episodes ago as well. So there are a lot of potential attacks that can take advantage of both the consumer and the retailer in this kind of frenzied environment over the Thanksgiving holidays.
Right. And there's just a lot of opportunities for everyone out there. So everybody stay safe.
Stay safe and don't forget what you know already. Make sure that you're still taking a step back when you're going through these things, going through the shopping process, going through your emails. Give yourself a beat before you do anything just to make sure you're doing it the right way.
And check your credit card statements here in a few weeks.
Yes. Now for headline number 2. On Halloween night, Google discloses a Chrome 0-day exploited in the wild. So we've talked about our episode, which we titled Spooky Cyber Threats for our Halloween theme. And our guest from FortiGuard Labs, Douglas Santos, who you shouted out earlier, said the threats that keep him up at night are 0-day exploits. So I guess appropriately or something, that fear was realized for some on the night of October 31st, as Google engineers released an urgent update to the Chrome browser to patch an actively exploited 0-day.
Right, and this wasn't just a 0-day threat, but an actively exploited threat, meaning this was observed in the wild, being used for an actual crime. So not only was this a viable vulnerability, it was one that is put in practice and used. This was specifically a use after free vulnerability.
Yeah, a use after free bug is a memory corruption bug that occurs when an application tries to use memory no longer assigned to it after that memory has been assigned to another app. So usually it can cause crashes, but in the case of this particular Chrome exploit, 2 malware researchers who discovered the issue actually said that the 0-day was being used to install malware.
Yeah, this was a remote code execution style malware, which is a term we recently added to our threat dictionary, which you can find over at our blog. In a remote code execution type attack, a hacker basically runs arbitrary commands or codes on a targeted device with the goal of escalating privileges, giving them greater access and control over the network so they can expand their reach and take a tighter grip over the system.
Yeah, and it targeted the audio component of the Chrome browser. And Chrome, by the way, most of you probably use it. More than half and as many as 2/3 of internet users, depending on the numbers you find, use Chrome as their primary browser. So this is not a minor type of software. It's something that everybody uses, really. Even if you don't use it regularly, you probably pop on it here and there. Mm-hmm. So definitely pretty pervasive browser, which means a lot of people could possibly have been vulnerable. So interestingly enough, it's the second Chrome 0-day detected this year. And what we say all along, anytime you do hear of these exploits being detected and acknowledged by the manufacturer or the maker of the software, they will release a patch. And you have to make sure that you are getting that patch right away.
So the vulnerability was found to be deployed to users through a Korean language news website. This was discovered by Kaspersky. They were unable to conclude where the attack originated from, but they do have a few leads. It sort of looks like a North Korean style attack, so to speak. Have some hints that it might be them, but they were unable to find a conclusive origin.
They have a name for how they're tracking the attacks using this particular exploit. Interested to figure out where they got the name from.
Where do you think they came up with the name Operation Wizard Opium?
I just don't know.
Maybe that's a future episode, how these things are named.
We have a story coming up about a name or phrase generator, so maybe they have a name generator for
just
this one
grabs
too.
2 words, and wizard and opium happen to be up on deck.
I don't know if Gandalf was using opium.
Well, he had that pipe for something.
He did have a pipe, though. Maybe we just discovered the origin. But yeah, just to recap, make sure that you have been patched. You probably have already gotten the automatic update to patch the latest vulnerability. But one tip that the ZDNet piece that we were working off of included here is that you can trigger manual updates in your Chrome browser by going to the Help section and About Google Chrome. So if you're not sure if you got the update or you haven't gotten the update yet, then just pop in there and you'll have the patch and you will be secure.
And in the meantime, we will see if we can get Douglas Santos to come back on the show and predict the future again for us.
And now headline number 3. As promised, we have a story now about a random generator of sorts. That's titled the article that we are using. This website has solved cybersecurity. So it's an article in Vice spotlighting a website that helps with an important cybersecurity issue, what companies should say after they've been breached.
Right. So one of the scarier aspects of a data breach at a big company, especially, is how long it can take for the public to actually find out about it. In a lot of cases, the issue's kind of swept under the rug and kept secret until it's no longer legally viable to bury it. This is especially true when a larger company has been breached thanks to some sort of no-brainer security lapse, like leaving administrative credentials set to default. So hopefully this website can give them some future news releases that they can use to sort of explain away what happened.
Yeah, we know that a common response, as highlighted in this article, is the phrase, "We take your privacy and security seriously," which doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't mean you're doing anything. It's just something to say, basically. In fact, an article in TechCrunch earlier this year found about a third of 285 data breaches that were reported in California, which requires those data breaches to be reported, had some version of that line. So that's almost 100 out of the 285 used that phrase. Some PR person came up with it at some point, and everyone's like, that sounds like a good idea.
Perhaps we should call up Hallmark and have them make a new line of sorry about your data cards that these companies can send out.
Mm-hmm. But yes, so this is a website that is going to solve that problem.
Yeah, businesses should probably realize that, once a data breach occurs, the damage to their reputation's already been done. You can use advanced services to roll back the damage of ransomware, but public perception has no shadow copies or backups. So I think the key to winning back some of that chunk of lost trust is just admit fault, shoulder the responsibility of remediation, and demonstrate that you plan on not letting this happen again.
And so let's get into it. We've beat around the bush.
Crank up the generator.
The website is called Why the Was I Breached? It generates excuses, apologies, statements, etc. to use if your company is hacked. And before we get to some actual excuses that have been generated, the site was created by Reflare, a cybersecurity training company, and it, in essence, highlights the poor reactions to past major cyber breaches by large companies such as Equifax, who really gets a call out on this one because they actually are named on the button to generate a new excuse if you don't like the first one that shows up. So Equifax is widely considered to be among the worst of the responders, including just a couple of examples, tweeting a fake phishing website rather than the company's actual response page 4 times from their official account. So they're actually sending people to
Fool me 4 times. Shame on me.
Yeah. I don't know if I've heard what 4 times is there. Creating a suspicious looking buggy response page not linked through the main site to begin with. So their social media person was probably like, well, this looks just about like our site, so it's probably fine. And of course, the other major no-no, which you mentioned earlier, is a common one, not disclosing the breach proactively, and also then finding out that there was a previous breach a couple months before that hadn't been disclosed either.
I assume the entire breach response, they had some background music with Benny Hill playing.
All right, so let's get to it. So what were some of your favorite excuses from the random excuse generator, Andrew?
The KGB used ransomware to make us look bad, but we have since said we are very sorry, so it'll never happen again.
I had a couple too. The Fancy Bears used nefarious techniques to gain access to some data, but we have since sent one of our guys to DEF CON, so it will never happen again.
This one's a physical security reminder for everybody listening. The Iranians used an open window in the server room to potentially access some customer data, but we have since put a rotating lock GIF on our website, so that will never happen again.
Yep. You got to watch out for them. Keep those windows locked. One more from me. The technology whiz kids used 30 to 50 feral hogs to do something, but we aren't quite sure what it is. Shout out to the Twitter trend from earlier this year. But we have since made everyone promise to be super, super careful, so it will never happen again. All right,
Well,
you want to close us out with one more example?
I got one more for us. The hacking people use cyborg bees to hack the coffee maker, but we once sent one of our guys to DEF CON, so it won't happen again. I assume when they get to DEF CON, yeah, they hack a few election machines and suddenly they know how to protect the coffee maker again.
So yes, so if you see any of these in a future statement by a corporate entity that has just been breached, I guess you can be thankful for the fact that they didn't say the old go-to, we take your privacy and security seriously, but maybe they
told someone.
Yeah. But then maybe they learned the wrong message in the first place, because they should probably be taking some measures to actually handle some of these breaches rather than using fun phrasing instead, which is really what this is all about. It's highlighting the absurdity of the statement side of things and highlighting the need for appropriate action.
And I think we should take a second after the fact here to warn all of our listeners, if there are children in the room, it might be a good time for them to leave.
Yes, this is a family podcast, so
Ping is for the kids.
Get those earmuffs ready. So that's it for headlines, and thank you very much for joining us for this special Thanksgiving episode of Ping, a Firewalls.com podcast. Subscribe or follow now to ensure you get the latest episodes as soon as they're available, and please do rate and review us wherever you listen to the podcast. Visit Firewalls.com for all your network security needs, and give us a follow on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. For Andrew Harmon, I'm Kevin Baxter. We'll be back soon with another episode, but in the meantime, happy Thanksgiving, and remember to
Get secure, stay
secure.